Hi everyone, Robbie here at Past Productions. Today's video is all about chocolate. If you enjoyed the video, why not subscribe to our channel? If you hit the notification bell, you'll be alerted every time we upload a new video. If you check in the description box below, there may even be a free worksheet for teachers and home educators. How many of you enjoy eating chocolate? Did you ever wonder where it came from? Let's find out. Chocolate's 4,000-year-old journey starts way back in Mesoamerica, or what you might call Mexico today. Many groups of people have lived in Mesoamerica, including the Aztec, the Mayan, and the Olmec tribes. The cocoa tree is native to South America. Once pollinated, the tree produces a pod around 20 inches in length that hangs off the tree trunk. Inside this are around 30 to 40 browny red almond-shaped beans housed inside a pulp. The beans are actually quite bitter. The pulp surrounding them has a sweeter taste. Some researchers believe that this may have been the first part of the pod that was consumed by humans originally. Cacao pods themselves grow in a wide range of colours, from pale yellow to bright green. You can even get dark purple or crimson coloured pods. The skin of the pod also varies greatly. Some are smoother, whereas others have dented craters and warts. What makes cocoa unique is that these attributes don't necessarily tell you what the quality or the flavour of the beans inside is going to be like. Other fruits and vegetables, such as tomatoes, tell you at what stage of ripeness they are from their colour. Growing cocoa is not easy. The trees can grow almost 60 feet high in their natural environment. On plantations, they only grow to around 20 feet high. The earliest cacao use discovered was in Ecuador and dates to roughly 5,300 years ago. Another source comes from a dig in 1984. Archaeologists were exploring the Mayan temple of Rio Azul. They found 15 vessels in a royal tomb. They were found arranged around a group of skeletons. One of the vessels was decorated in glyphs that depicted the god Cacao. A dark-coloured powder lined the inside of the vessel. When tested, trace amounts of theobromine were detected. This material confirms that the powder inside was cocoa. The Olmecs are believed to be the first people to discover the cacao plant. They created a chocolate drink. They drank this drink that they created during rituals and used it as medicine. Sadly, there's little to no evidence around to tell us how the Olmec produced and created their chocolate drink. Hundreds of years later, the Mayans praised chocolate as the drink of the gods. The Mayan people left writings that helped us to understand how they used cocoa. The Dresden Codex says that it is the food of the rain god Con, whilst the Madrid Codex says that the gods shed their bloods on the cacao pods as part of its production. Once a year, the Maya people gathered to give thanks to one of their cocoa gods, Ekchwa. Owners of cacao groves would hold ceremonies or special festivals in his honour. Cacao beans were traded throughout the Mayan Empire. They were seen as a very rich commodity. At one point, they were even used as a form of currency. People would prefer to be paid in cocoa beans. For example, people would trade 3 cocoa beans for a tomato. A turkey, on the other hand, would cost you around 200 beans. The Mayan drink was a brew made from roasted ground cocoa seed. Firstly, the Maya people cut open the cacao pods to expose the beans and the fleshy pulp. Then, they were left out for a few days in the hot sun to ferment. On some occasions, they were roasted over an open fire. This gave them a smoky flavour. The beans then had their husks removed and were ground into a fine paste. It was seasoned with a mixture of chilies, water and cornmeal. Sometimes vanilla, cinnamon, or other spices would have been added. Mayan people poured this mixture from one pot to another to get a smooth, thick foam on top of the drink. With the invention of the chocolate whisk later on, they were able to froth up their drinks without pouring from cup to cup. the beverage was named by them as chocolatl, which roughly translates to bitter water. In fact, the very word chocolate itself comes from the Old Nahuatl language. There were many uses for hot chocolate. It was used in official ceremonies and religious rituals. It was used during feasts and festivals. It was used in funerary offerings. It could be used as a tribute, given as gifts to rulers of other Mayan states. It was used for medicinal purposes. It was also used during upper-class marriage ceremonies. They gave a gift of 5 beans to each other. Hundreds of years later again, around the 15th century, the Aztecs were still using chocolate. They believed that chocolate was a gift from their god Quetzalcoatl. They believed he was condemned by the other Aztec gods for sharing the drink with the human race. They drank the chocolate as a special drink. Sometimes it was drunk in preparation for war. It may have also been included as rations for Aztec soldiers. Unlike the Mayan people, the Aztec people tended to drink their chocolate cold. The Aztecs come from further north in Mesoamerica. The climate there is no good for growing cocoa trees. Instead, the Aztecs demanded that any places they conquered that could grow cocoa trees was to pay them a tax or tribute of cocoa beans. You're probably wondering when chocolate made its way over to Europe. There are various different accounts of how chocolate was officially transported from Mesoamerica. When the Spanish Conquistadores came to Mexico, one story says that the explorer Hernán Cortés brought chocolate back around 1528. He had gone to the Americas in search of gold and riches, but instead he was gifted a cup of cocoa by the Aztec emperor. One of his soldiers, called Bernal Diaz, wrote of an encounter with chocolate. He said,
"From time to time they served him, Montezuma, in cups of pure gold a certain drink made from cacao. I did see them bring in more than 50 large pitchers of cacao with froth in it, and he drank some of it, the women serving with great reverence."
For those who don't know, reverence means respect for someone or something. Earlier sources tell us that Christopher Columbus also found chocolate on one of his missions to the Americas. He and his crew captured a large native canoe that had goods in it for trading. Amongst them were cocoa beans, named almonds by Christopher's son Ferdinand. Ferdinand said,
"I observed that when any of these almonds fell, they all stooped to pick it up, as if an eye had fallen."
Lastly, a source tells us that a Jesuit missionary called Jose de Acosta came across it. He lived in Peru and then Mexico in the 16th century. He noted the following:
"Loathsome to such as are not acquainted with it, having a scum of froth that is very unpleasant taste. Yet it is a drink very much esteemed among the Indians, wherewith they feast noble men who pass through their country. The Spaniards, both men and women that are accustomed to the country, are very greedy of this chocolate. They say they make diverse sorts of it, some hot, some cold, and some temperate, and put therein much of that chili. Yea, they make paste thereof, the which they say is good for the stomach and against the catarrh."
Let's get back to Cortés, who I mentioned earlier. When Cortés returned home, he introduced cocoa seeds to the Spanish. For a long time, it was still served as a drink. They used it as a medicine to treat illnesses such as abdominal pain. They felt its bitterness would aid healing. However, once sugar and honey was used to sweeten the naturally bitter taste, it became a favorite drink in Spanish court. The Spanish had tried to keep it quiet for a long time. Chocolate quickly became popular among the rich and wealthy. Even Catholic monks loved chocolate and drank it to aid their religious practices. Within around 100 years of its introduction to Europe, chocolate had established a foothold. In 1615, French King Louis XIII married Anne of Austria, who was the daughter of the Spanish King Philip III. To celebrate their marriage, Anne brought samples of chocolate to the royal courts of France. Following this, chocolate soon appeared in Britain at special chocolate houses. chocolate got such a name for itself that even Samuel Pepys wrote in his diary about it. On Wednesday the 24th of April in 1661, he remarked,
"Waked in the morning with my head in a sad taking through last night's drink, which I am very sorry for. So rose and went out with Mr. Creed to drink our morning draught, which he did give me in chocolate to settle my stomach."
As the trend of chocolate spread throughout Europe, many nations set up their own cocoa plantations in countries along the equator. It was an expensive drink, consumed for its health benefits as well as its decadence. Chocolate at this time was still being produced by hand. However, when the Industrial Revolution hit, things changed. In 1828, the invention of the chocolate press revolutionized chocolate making. The device could squeeze cocoa butter from roasted cacao beans, leaving a fine cocoa powder behind. This was then poured into a mold and mixed with liquids, where it solidified into an edible bar of chocolate. So there you have it. Chocolate's come a long way from its ancient beginnings. What was your favourite part of this video? Feel free to leave us any comments or questions you have below. If you want to see more of our videos, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'll see you next time. Bye!